Hello, hello, hello. Here's the mic right here. If I speak into it, is the audio good or bad? Maybe, maybe something like that. Let me get a sip of water real fast. All right. I finally had a busy week and I can do whatever I want. And I haven't been able to do much writing. And it's been haunting me that I just want to like keep focusing on interactivity. I feel so driven. I still swear by it. I'll stumble across it and I'm like, oh, that's so good. Every time I stumble. And I'm like, you literally can just reverse engineer and then you have it all the time. But that doesn't feel, it's like a whole different process. It doesn't feel like writing. It feels different. In some ways, maybe it feels like I don't do it naturally. It doesn't feel fulfilling the way writing does. But for an exercise, I was like, I could do that. And it might be worth sharing. So let me see here. Let me share. So the first few might be like, I'm wondering if we'll dig down and get maybe some interesting stuff. This is what I'm wondering. And this is even like a test run because I'm like, I could do this more, or I could do it like with people. I could lead a little class or something. So if I share, does it echo if I do this? Is there an echo? I don't think there should be. I could try throwing some music on too. Oh my God. Then there might be an echo. I don't know how these things work. Um, Yeah, let me see. Say hi if you're in the chat. This is one person watching, but okay. So like there's a one of the problems with interactivity. There's kind of it's kind of the spiel to easily explain it. There's like something so quick that it'll either go over people's heads or they'll dismiss it, and that's that it's dramatic irony. But you could say it's dramatic if there's two types of dramatic irony. One of them is with a persistent charge, then that's a way you could say it fast. Still kind of goes over people's head. You could say it's the context that creates the subtext. That's interactivity. Then you could give some examples. But one thing I always say is it's like I think it's like I forget the guy's name, the Russian guy who like basically invented free association with editing. Wolfer, what's up, dude? It's not Eisenstein, but it's like a dude right before him. But it's the picture of the guy, and then if it's a picture of food, then his face is identical every time. Picture of the guy, picture of a girl, picture of the guy, picture of like a house or something. And it because of the associations, we attach a different emotion to his face, even though his face is identical every time. So that's a big part of what interactivity is. It's like the visuals are not the most important thing. The visuals in those, they're all the same. So it's whatever is above the visuals. And you could call it subtext. But it's funny, people use subtext a different way too. People often use subtext as like subtle text almost is what they mean, or like innuendos and hinting and that kind of stuff. And I don't think that's the way I use subtext. But okay, so if we have a face, like this would be an interactivity exercise. So like, let me see here. So I won't dwell on this particular test, but like, so here's a guy. We'll come back to him maybe. And it would be like what he's looking at. So this is what um, this is like the first exercise. I've talked about this one before, so it's already in my head to get started. And I kind of want to see where this goes. So so this is what he's looking at. This is like two shots. Yeah, you guys get it. One, two. So this is where the interactivity would be if you build subtext. So you sometimes you can say it and then you're like, okay, now we need to build the images that come before this. So, oh, hold on here. I could see this being maybe too slow for like a actual good live stream. But this is good. This is for me to just try and figure this out. This is the first test. And then I want to try some like, because I have an idea of a project that I kind of want to work on, that I want to specifically try the reverse engineering thing. So what's the subtext here that we would say that this image means? It would mean he's considering whether or not to walk in. And I guess I could write that. And now, like we could draw him like, put his hand here and his eyes like like that, like he's like, But that kind of undoes the interactivity. Like we don't need that. Like we know he's looking at the help wanted. We know he's considering. Now, why is he considering? We would have a previous scene or image, and it would be his mom and him on the couch. We'll say he's playing video games. This is a really bad sketchy drawing, but oh god, too sketchy. She'll have a pot in her hand. So we could build interactivity for her watching him play video games, and we could just keep going backwards. And I don't know if this works, so we're gonna see if this works. But she's saying, like, get a job or hit the streets. So then he walks by a help wanted sign later. We know just previously he was threatened by his mom that he needs to get a job. So of course we got a feeling he's going to go in. But we can continue to build interactivity. By the way, so with interactivity, I say it's psychological. Like that's another thing you could say. It always is psychological. That's why it's above the words in the pictures. Like when I mentioned the face, it's always the same. The images are always the same, but the meaning behind, like we could use these two images. We could have a completely different meaning behind the interactivity. He could be looking at help wanted, like this is his old job and they just fired him and now they put up the help wanted sign, but he knows he can't go in because he's the one they fired. So it's identical imagery and identical audio. Every sensory thing is identical, but the psychological thing would totally change depending on the context that you set up. So that psychological aspect, that's like one. I've been saying, just talking a little bit about cinema, and cinema has ingredients, and like Scorsese said, Marvel isn't cinema, and so cinema has to be psychological as one of the things. It just has to be. If it doesn't have like some of this kind of stuff where you're building context to get subtext, and I can think of an example. For example, so this is again just an example, but there's a guy. A spy goes to the bathroom, and then while he's in the bathroom stall, an assassin attacks him, and they fight in the bathroom stall, and he puts the assassin in a stronghold, and he says, "Who does number 2 work for? Who does number 2 work for?" Okay. So at that point, that would not check the psychological box yet, because you're just kind of seeing the scene play out. There's nothing special about it. But the second they cut to another stall and there's another guy there reading the paper, taking a crap, and he's like, he hears all this like thudding and thumping in the next stall, and all of a sudden he hears someone yell, "Who does number two work for?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you get it, buddy. You get it." Like he has the completely wrong idea of what's going on. He thinks the guy is just trying really hard to take a crap. At that point, it is psychological. So they've introduced two points of view. The audience gets to juxtapose the point of view. They sense the which it's basically, I think it is dramatic irony. But so the thing about this dramatic irony too is like I do mention, because when I hear dramatic irony, some of the examples, like if you Google it, a lot of times they're like really quick and they're just like it's kind of a line and then it's over or whatever. It's like a little mini event. But this is like a whole scene is charged by the dramatic irony. Delay, yeah, and that it was Tom Arnold. Yeah, yeah. So that is like so Austin Powers is like pure cinema. But Marvel is not pure cinema. Except, you know, it's funny. So speaking of psychological, there are certain superpowers that are really fun with the psychological aspect. And I'm almost using psychological like interchangeably with interactivity. But like so Superman and his secret identity, like Clark Kent, that is very psychological. The audience tracking the dramatic irony of every scenario. Very charming, very fun, very cinematic. And then there was one other one I was thinking of. Daredevil. Daredevil's eavesdropping is always super cinematic. So superhero movies can be cinematic, but it does feel like some of those Marvel movies are not. Like they feel like they don't check the boxes. But so this is the thing for cinema is you need the psychological, you need did we get the shot, which I'll give you an example of that. Who's the guy? Quiet Red Media. What's up, man? Quiet Red. I got the book and it's great, and I've been reading him. I read, yeah, like the first handful of story. Well, not that far. I read the first three or so or something, and one of them was I'm halfway through the samurai assassin one that you wrote, and it's awesome. So yeah, it's fun. Thanks for doing that project. If anyone if you're anyone's here seeing this or whatever, Quiet Red has a anthology book for sale that I wrote one of the short stories in it. So did we get the shot is like so there's epic levels and then there's capturing. So this is like the quote from I'm kind of getting off base and just trying to talk about interactivity, but there's a quote from John Ford and he says anything that happens good in movies happens by accident. And like that's the idea, like movies are trying to capture stuff, and if you capture it, you're super stoked. So that's when you go, did we get the shot? And it can be with performances, it can be with moments, but it can be with epic shit. Like it can be like, oh, we're gonna have an explosion. We only got one shot at this. We got 1,000 extras on horseback. Can we get the shot? Tell me we got the shot. That's like that cinema. But then like more personal. And Metropolis had some of these with the performance wise. It had some of the like they're capturing some stuff and it's really fun. And there's a little bit of the psychologicals there too, but maybe not super crazy setups. But and then the last aspect is just the technology of capturing motion, which is like almost animation almost doesn't count. Like I think like straight up film and digital film does sort of count, but like green screen and CGI does not count. That's a big one where the Marvel movies fail. So they can check a few of those boxes, but if you're checking all three, but psychological is like the kind of the funnest thing thinking back about movies that we love and it like it doesn't mean like you're necessarily in a person's head the whole time. It can mean that, but a lot of times it means juxtaposing points of view, and how like fun that is for the audience to do. And that's the example with the bathroom stall in Austin Powers. And it's funny if you don't do that, like that it's a simple thing to do that makes things way better. And I wonder if that can apply to to our help wanted. Could we have two people see the help wanted at the same time and they both apply at the same time? Maybe. We could have the guy. We could have a guy spying on him. Okay, this is already getting good, guys. Wait for this. So here's our guy. This is shot 4. He's looking in the window and it says help wanted in the window. He's just looking at it. And then we see this guy spying. So let's reverse engineer this guy. So let's go back here. And it was something I said earlier, but it's the baker. This can be like a bakery. And the baker guy, he says, "You're fired." Bam, bam, bam. And this guy is like, "Oh, it's the same guy." So now we know the reason help was wanted is because this guy got fired. He's spying on the guy who's going to apply. So we have like some stuff. What else can we add? Can we try going back one more after the mom kicking the guy out playing video games? I'm thinking we could, because we can chain him and it's fun, but then sometimes you got to undo the chains because, like, I was thinking, like, we could have a scene of her saying, "I swear if I see him playing video games one more time, I'm going to grab my pan and kick him out of the house," you know? And then she sees him playing video games, whatever. So then that would be some interactivity because we would see, like, oh shit, she's gonna kick him out. But the only problem with that is it is a little bit of a thing. We're creating it from reverse engineering. I'm a lot better at doing this forward. It's hard to do reverse engineering where, so if we say something and then that exact thing happens, that's like a super big no-no. Slash, I don't think that's like one rule that maybe you can almost never do or whatever. So I think the simple one I heard people say is like, you know, if a telephone rings and the guy's like, "I'm gonna go get that telephone," and then he walks over and gets the telephone, is like, it's that you would just cut one of those things. Like if he says, "I'm gonna get the telephone," you can just cut there and yeah, he got it. Or you could just cut to him grabbing the telephone and cut out him saying what he's gonna do. Because that, for some reason, that's like really bad. Like, I don't know when that happens. But so you can have people say what they're going to do. But if they announce what they're going to do, then it kind of can't really happen in that way. So we could add interactivity. Like she could say, like, if I see him playing video games, I'm gonna, I don't know. I'm also trying to like think of like, if we're trying to be serious about this, it could be kind of try to be sort of authentic with it of like, what would a mom do? She would say like, I'm gonna, I don't know. She might unplug it and he could be, of course, about to beat it. And we could set that up that he's like literally about to beat it. And she unplugs it. Then he could throw a fit and then she could kick him out and then he has to go get a job. And I don't know. See, some of this stuff is like, it's so basic. We haven't stumbled on any of like the super funny stuff. I'm like, this guy, it could be funny if he's like a mastermind who's trying to choose who can apply to the job. That's kind of funny. I'm trying to think why you would do that. Like, what if he's so it's already kind of changing, but what if he is? I'm trying to think what he would specifically need a certain type of person to apply. So like, okay, so here's an example. what if he kind of helps and feeds a vampire and he needs virgins and he lures them in by putting up a help wanted sign. So then if people are too cool at the job application, so this is not what I would do, but this would work because then his questions are not to determine whether he's a good worker. They would just be to determine whether or not he's a virgin. And that would be hilarious because then you'd have the juxtaposing of the points of view. You have one guy going in thinking he's getting a job at a bakery. You have the other guy trying to determine if he's a virgin or not. And you could have like he did maybe have to fire someone and they know his secret and they can maybe sabotage. They could say, "Don't take that job, kid," or whatever, you know. So that almost feels like we got somewhere that would be like kind of worthwhile, that you could continue developing. But some of it seemed dead end ish, like the mom, and going back further, like you could keep going. But I don't know. One thing I wrote about Megalopolis I liked too is like it kind of shows scenes that you wouldn't necessarily guess it would show. Like it's like now this, now this, now this, now this, and it's hopping all around, and it's kind of hopping to kind of quirky things, and that was inspiring to me. I was like, I would love to tell a story that's kind of like that. Like I think they call it, what do they call it? If it's a like an environment movie, like the French word for environment. Oh, I can't think of it right now. But that's a whole genre of film you can do where it's just about one one place and the place is more important than the characters. Like Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing is all about like one block in Brooklyn, and then like things happen on that block, and that's what he tracks over the course of one day. He tracks all the characters coming and going, but it's all about milieu. Milieu is the word. So you could do a milieu thing, which is kind of like what Metropolis is, but it's or Megalopolis, but the milieu is actually like yeah, just the whole kind of city basically, just all the characters it's following. They're all kind of these archetypal fairy tale or fable, I think what they call it. So yeah, you could get fable-y with the stuff. Um, let me see what you guys are saying. Alex Withrow. Is the guy spying on him Alfred Hitchcock? He definitely could be. She smells the food, thinks he cooked dinner like she asked. Turns out it was the smell of his flavored vape pen. That is a psychological. See, yeah, what you're doing there is I wonder if you could put it one way almost as like for the way I'm talking about cinematic psychological interactivity, it's like you kind of need the two points of view. A lot of times you need two and you juxtapose them. So like one, if it's just her coming in and being like, "Oh, I smell food. Oh, he cooked dinner. That's so nice." Yeah, that's like nothing. That's like so if that's all there is, like the audience would actually be like, "Wait, so I'm just supposed to have empathy for her emoting that she likes the smell?" Like if it was a novel and you're reading it, you would read like, "Okay, I get it." And I guess it could just keep going. And you could do it like she walks in and she's like, "Oh, it's just a vape pen." Or you could set it up beforehand where we know it's just his vape pen, which might be a little funnier. It could be either way. Um, it'd be funny if his vape pen is like turkey dinner flavored. "Mom, I got a new turkey dinner flavored vape. What do you think about that?" She's like, "You need to get a job. You need to get out of here." Turkey dinner flavored vape is pretty funny. Uh, we're kind of for this brainstorming stuff. We're definitely operating in the realm. Speaking of like Megalopolis again, but a little more in the fable of like we're like turkey flavored vape is not realistic. So sometimes that makes it less funny too. Um, but it is funny. All right, let me see. So we could try another track of interactivity. The thing that I kind of was wanting to try and do is I wanted to do a story that's eight mini comics. So it's eight scenes, and you could read them in any order. And so if you read it one way, it's mystery. If you read it one way, it's suspense. It would be like the vape thing would work. Like one of the mini comics could be about him getting a turkey flavored vape, and the next mini comic is about her coming home smelling a turkey dinner and realizing that it's just his vape and getting pissed. So that would be like two mini comics. You could literally read them in either order, and it's interesting either way. And then, there'd be a mini comic where he would go see the help wanted sign. We'd see someone who was fired. We'd see the guy who needs someone new to feed to the vampire. Like, we could literally, that would work. Like, when you have interactivity stacked like that, it's fun because almost any order works. And we could do 8 mini comics and tell that little saga. Like, imagine if you read first and it's just the guy going in for the interview and the dude's reading him questions, and they're slightly weird questions, and they're like, why are you asking me like about my sex life? What does that have to do with the job? And the guy's like, oh, nothing. And then like, you keep reading and it all makes sense by the time you finish all 8. So that's like, I feel like in theory the concept would work, but I don't know if I just want to do, unless if there's a spin on this world that could make it like really fun, like Megalopolis, like if it takes place in a really fun world. And one thing I was thinking of, like, you could go over the top. Like, I thought of the okay first scene for a story. Some of these ideas are like, these are the bottom of the barrel that I might never write, but I still turn them over in my head a little bit. But there's one where it would be ever so slightly loosely based on the aviator guy, Howard Hughes, because I heard legends that he would, like, I don't know if it was later in life, but I don't think he was that old, but he was like 30s or whatever, maybe late 20s even. He would like hole up for 6 months in a penthouse, never leave, and he would shit in buckets and stuff. And then, he'd somehow come out of it. But it could be a scene where like two friends decide that their friend he's been like monk mode shitting in buckets for 6 months, and that they go in and pull him out, and then the story would kind of get going from there. But actually I was thinking that I saw like a recap of a 80s or 70s anime that might be based on a manga or whatever, slice of life ish, and it had that scene in it. It had a guy literally shitting in buckets, and his friends break him out, like slap him senseless and clean him up or whatever. So, but that level of ridiculousness, I do like. And if this could take place in that, like, but the vampire thing's like too far, maybe. But if it was something else, like maybe it could be like a woman playing matchmaker, maybe. Then she wouldn't be asking necessarily sex slave, but maybe it does need to be like a virgin. Maybe he feeds the vampire his mom. It turns out she's frigid and she adopted him. Yeah. That could be one of the mini comics. And that might be maybe the last one to explain everything. Because one thing, yeah, this kind of circular interactivity, stacked interactivity, kind of reverse engineered, is it can be fun with, what was I going to say, with, you can read it in any order, but yeah, if you read stuff, you get that feeling of intrigue sometimes, where like you know the whole story, but one of these points, like even for example, two guys breaking into a penthouse and then like kicking over a bucket of shit and pulling out a guy out of it. That's kind of a good way to start a story, because the audience would be like, all right, what's going on here? Like, and you want to know like the context. You want, please explain the context of what's happening. There's one I have for a possible Percival episode where it starts with, it's loosely based on Joan of Arc type stuff, but there's a girl, and she's kind of this rumors of her being a holy girl, but she's under arrest, and they're kind of deciding whether or not to kill her. But a lot of this is straight up the Joan of Arc story, but it's a little bit different. What I am trying to do, I still haven't fully worked it out, but so she's locked in the tower, she's waiting, and they send a messenger with a box because they're trying to settle if she is or isn't like possibly connected to like a religion that would they would not want to kill her basically if she's connected to like one of these gods. And then it's so they have like a red rock and a green rock, like an emerald rock and a ruby rock polished or whatever in a box, and she has to pick one, and one is the right choice, but and she has to pick one and like put a ribbon on it and put it back or something. Then they lock the box. The box goes back, and then they see what she picked, and then depending on what she picked, she would live or die. And then the box, I got to figure out like why they don't do it directly. I think because they're at odds, so they have a mediator, and then the mediator doesn't know the context, so he can't. But they would try to sneak him the context if he was like an undercover guy, because they just want to find like it's kind of like whoever she picks, they get like an inheritance almost. So like it's way in the interest for Team Red or Team Green for her to pick the red or green rock. And she's just, it's almost like a Buddhist reincarnation thing. Like she just has to pick one. And so if a story started like that, like girl locked in a tower, a mediator monk walks in and shows her a box with two rocks, tells her to pick one. Then he puts a ribbon on it, closes it, gives it to a messenger, and the messenger leaves town. Like you would definitely be like, okay, what was the context of that? Please explain. And then when you explain it, it's kind of cool. And there's still like things you got to iron out and figure that out. But with that story too, I want the messenger, so the box would get stolen, so it doesn't get back to the people. And that's like I just got to figure out why. I think it kind of sort of makes sense. It's like they use the mediator because they can't cheat or whatever, so they have this mediator, and then and then it's like just a top secret. So someone like knew or whatever, and they intercept the top secret transport back, which could just be like it might be like to the next town like a half day ride, but it might just be a walk down the street. But it didn't make it. Someone got it, and then they might not know the context either. But that information is very important, and they could potentially switch the ribbon. Everything would change, and the audience would be tracking all this stuff as we start to know the situation. So that's like a good one that will be pretty fun. I'm pretty sure I can work with that. Um, and yeah, so that one's pretty good. And that could almost be like I thought like that could be like the 8 panel thing, but I'm kind of using it too much in this Percival thing. I don't want this one Percival thing to be an eight mini comic circular story. And when I say circular, I don't mean like it begins right where it ends. I just mean you can kind of read it in any order. Um, but that would be a type of thing that would work for that. Like one mini comic is a guy transporting the box gets killed and the box gets stolen. You're like, okay. But then you read and you find out, oh, the box and the girl, she picked a rock. One of them has a ribbon. Like, oh, okay. You read another one and you're like, oh, it's like two houses that are fighting over which god the girl is supposedly reincarnation of which one that they worship, and then they would be entitled to like the the treasure of her house or whatever that they're after. And so then you're like, oh, okay. And yeah, you can kind of keep doing that. So you find these little like scenarios where it builds out like that, where it does like, I'm kind of calling it stacked interactivity. And if when you have it like that, you could picture like the guy who stole it, like if there's a scene of him switching the ribbon, like we might not know exactly why he does that, but that would have a huge implication, and the audience would be tracking that. It'd be very entertaining. Um, but yeah, what was I gonna say is so I kind of want to try maybe another maybe we can delete some of this. So we did get some okay stuff here though. So this is some decent stuff, but I don't know. Let me see. Sip of water here real fast. Let's try one more from the interactivity book. Has several, and so one thing like you can start, like you start with the image, and that the image is like what you build the context of. So there's like a good example from the interactivity book is like it's two guys and they're looking at a painting in a gallery. You know, and so that yeah, like with no psychological charge, it's just two guys looking at a painting in a gallery. It's like literally nothing, but we can build context, and you can just say the context. So you can say if it's like Greg and Max, and this is from the book, but it's like the names are different, but it's like Max is sleeping with Greg's wife. That alone, like that changes the scene, you know? And it's all of a sudden there is a psychological charge and there is interactivity, it becomes cinema. That would be like the thing you could tell actors like, oh, okay, like this is kind of fun. So they're talking about the painting, but there might be a little bit of tension, you know, whatever. And does some of it is like, does Greg know or not? But then there's another question: is Max? He imported this painting. Greg is the buyer, and Max is trying to sell it to Greg. And Max is in deep doo doo with the mafia, and he needs the money, so he needs Greg to say yes. And he needs Greg to not know that he might be sleeping with his wife, because that could kaput the deal, and then he would get offed by the mafia or whatever, get his kneecaps broke. So that would kind of almost work with the 8 mini comic thing too. But this one again, like I don't know, finding the I was mentioning. Oh, you know, it would be a good one if we could figure out because I guess it's combining like these two itches I want to scratch. One is the megalopolis thing where it's kind of like fable, archetypal, and like bonkers. Like those combinations were great. And but the other one is After Hours, which is a Scorsese movie. And I put with that like that genre. There's a very similar ish movie. It's Kubrick. Eyes Wide Shut is like that too. And these are like one night misadventure. And if I could do the 8 circular comic for one of those genres, that would really kind of be fun. And yeah. Dele, I want to rip off that one example from the book of two men on a sailboat who love the same woman. Yeah, see that's a good one too. Yeah, I say in that one they go sailing for the golden fleece, but and that's another one that becomes psychological and it lasts for the entire story. So it is not like a little thing. It's you're kind of setting up your whole story to win from the beginning. And anytime you can do that. Yeah, so now I'm just thinking like if we tried to do some stuff like this is not exactly a lot of some interactivity stuff that works great is undercover type stuff. Um, and but this is like where it gets really hard to just think of the example of what it could be. But uh, like say it's like I don't know. brainstorming. We're not even doing images right now, but say it's like, what is it? It's an AA meeting, and one guy is supposed to meet. I'm not going to write it. I'm just going to. So say, yeah, guy A. He's supposed to meet like guy B. They like her. This is almost like a spy thing. Like they have to do some transfer, and they're going to meet at an AA meeting. They could meet anywhere, but whatever. And they're going to transfer, I don't know, a baseball card with a signature on it. They're going to transfer like an original track from like Nirvana B-sides track. Whatever. This is all placeholders. But then A can't make the meeting, so he recruits C to do it for him. And that's like kind of fun. And it could be funny if B can't make the meeting and he recruits like D to do it for him. Like that gets you into kind of some kind of funny stuff. But yeah, like that stuff is funny, but it's just really hard to think of like real life examples where that comes up. Like if it was like, say like it's a mob boss and an undercover cop, but the undercover cop would never be like, hey, I can't make it. Can you be the undercover cop? I mean, maybe you might be able to think of a reason why he would have to do that. They send in like another cop. Or he sends in his friend. He has to admit that he's a cop and then send him in. There's one that I sort of thought of that's kind of like this, and it's like there's a captain and he talks to like a witch, like a Shakespearean witch who can kind of tell the future. And she says the next batch of recruits, one of them has been sent to kill you. And like for his ship, it's like the new recruits come in every year and they only allow like, I mean, we can try and keep it real tight. So they only allow 8. And so the captain, like, I think it would be cool if he goes in as one of the recruits. And so he gets a fake captain. He goes undercover boss. And this almost couldn't be an 8 mini comic thing. This would be like a longer story. So he goes undercover boss. He has fake boss. And then there's 7 people that might be a killer, according to this witch. This is the problem. It's relying on a witch, which is like cool. It's actually kind of cool. And I was thinking the killer, the thing actually that would kind of make it make sense a little bit is the killer gets sent by a witch too. That kind of makes it more Shakespearean. It makes sense that the witches know what each other are seeing and doing and telling each other. Like they kind of sense each other. So this one, I don't know if she would say, I think she would say like, well, yeah, depending on what we want the audience to know. But she might say like, by the way, the king knows you're coming. And, he went undercover as one of the recruits. I don't know if she'd tell him that much. I'm not sure. But the idea of like the network of witches all predicting stuff and they all kind of know what each other are predicting, that actually does kind of sound cool. That's not just plot contrivance of like, let me get a little excuse to do a fun undercover boss story. But then the ship would crash and then they crash land on like an island and then they have to survive and then they have to work together, but they still don't know who each other are. And then they might find out, but they've already kind of become friends, and then something would happen. So like that could be like a kind of long, fun story. Like That all kind of works. But what I would love is to get the 8 mini comic thing going for, yeah, like maybe it's an undercover. A big part that's like hard with it, it's the real life examples. And that's why sometimes we're going back from pictures like help wanted, it's like any picture and you can try and do it. I almost want to pull up like random pictures we could try and build context. That was my initial idea of the exercise. We actually haven't done too much of it. I'm still just talking about. But so yeah, like back to like one of the issues I'm having is like I know like one kind of good interactivity thing. Some of it's like if then statements. So it's like hold on. Yeah, like clear all this out. If it's like okay, say it's like a wizard and there's a door. And this is yeah, we're getting into like saying it and doing it kind of thing. But we can still kind of explain. So and then there's like a young lad. Here's the young lad. The wizard says, he says, go through that door and you're going to see, you're going to see like 3 men in robes and masks. And he's going to say, one mask will be upside down. And then there are 3 colors. So the color of the mask that is upside down what orders can he give him? He's like if it's on the red guy, then and he could say like there will be another person in the room with you besides the 3 masked people. If it's the red guy, then you should kill the person in the room. But if it's green, then you leave him alone and pass through. And if it's like the orange guy, then you grab the guy, grab that person and take him back. So he's got his orders and he's going to walk through and he's going to see something. But then he's kind of just going to see something we said. It's like, that's kind of where you want the story to maybe do something different. But like it could be all I don't know, maybe it's the mask on the red. I don't know. But then that one idea with that is like the other guy is also getting orders and you would juxtapose his orders. And they're both just looking at these mask combinations. And then the last thing there that would make it interesting is like some actual control over which mask is upside down. You could do this like the mini comic format works for choose your own adventure. But yeah, like what? So there'd be anyway. Might be sort of a dead end, but this type of like whole vibe it's kind of fun, and it kind of works for like the interactivity type stuff. But I actually kind of like it. I don't know. I don't even mind it that much. But it's not like even the airship one. I mean, it's really fun sometimes if you think about them, and it's real life, and it kind of works. Like you could do the double undercover boss thing almost with like a pizza shop guy. But yeah, like whether or not it's real life, whether or not it's just like completely sandbox where I just make the universe and it's only there to just kind of be a demo for this interactivity almost. And it's kind of cool in its own way. But, you know, then this is kind of the example where it's the hardest. Speaking of like, yeah, thinking of like real life examples where the interactivity comes up is almost like the hardest thing. I'll give you guys an example of a real life one from a movie. There's a movie called Driver. It's a shit. What's his name? He's an awesome director. Walter Hill, and Walter Hill's one of the directors. There's only a handful. There's like it's Walter Hill and Tarantino, Hitchcock, and then De Palma. And surprisingly, not Spielberg often. Just sometimes Spielberg, but not as much as you'd think. But those four, pretty much it. But Walter Hill was the most. Every single movie of his has like strong interactivity. But this is what's weird about interactivity. This is why I like it. Is like it's actually like it's not in like that many movies. Like it's in. I think the way I'm talking about it, the psychological charge of juxtaposing two points of view. That's only in it's in some comedy stuff, for little scenes or whatever. It's always great when that happens. But yeah, it's only like Walter Hill straight up, like literally only Walter Hill, and some of these like Tarantino. Uh, so that's like 1% or less of like movies. Um, yes, but in Driver, there's a rogue cop who really wants to catch a getaway driver that he just hates or whatever. And so his plan, he kind of goes morally kind of not the greatest or whatever, but I think he lets some criminals out of jail just so they can put together a fake um, job so they can recruit the driver, and he's going to give them shorter prison sentences if they do this for him. So he's basically he's setting up he's setting it up so the bank can even get stolen. Like he's making everything work so that this big job can happen. The driver will get hired and he'll know everything about it. He'll be able to catch the driver then. And that's kind of a big part of the plot of the movie. The whole final act almost is like him setting this trap. And that's the thing. That's all it is a trap. And yeah, like it's amazing. Like that whole scenario has the psychological charge. In that case, it's kind of like just suspense because you're just like, shit, how's the driver going to get out of this when he's literally walking into a trap? So yeah, walking into a trap, very simple, very nice. If that was one of the mini comics we were doing, it could be, yeah, like a guy walking into a trap. Then we set up that it is a trap as another mini comic. Then how it plays out is another mini comic. Yeah. What else? I don't know. Yeah, it would be nice. It's not the kind of thing I can crack. Jolly, what's up? Well read. Prime. Saving Thirst to Push. Oh, I don't have my Prime. I just have water this time. But maybe one day. Todd Phillips. Yeah. I don't think he has interactivity, I'm pretty sure. I wonder if I was wondering if like some directors might poo-poo it. Like cuz it's kind of like a Hitchcock form. It's like formalism. I've heard people say like it's like suspense or whatever. I was like maybe they poo-poo it. Maybe they claim it's too easy, but I'm like I don't think it's easy. and it's rare. Like it's straight up rare. Uh, yeah, you could some of this you could transfer to sci-fi. Kindergarten Cop. Oh yeah, that's funny. That is funny. Um, yeah. So some of this will lead to the '90s style high concept movies, like Kindergarten Cop, where that is like an interactive charge that lasts the whole movie. They set it up, uh, and it does work great. Um, yeah. So I don't know. I'm sitting here. I might end the stream in a second. Just trying to think. Like, is there? I want to write an 8 mini comic story, all based on interactivity style stuff. It's like it would work. The now hiring thing would actually work, but I don't think for that one it's a different question. It's getting like the vibe in the world fun, where it's not just like I don't know, a dude getting kicked out by his mom and then getting a job or whatever. Like that's okay, but that doesn't sound like that fun to me. But if it's somehow like a billionaire shitting in buckets, now we're talking. That's what I'm looking for. You know, a little more of that megalopolis bonkersness is what I want. After Hours too. You could is After Hours is also bonkers. Bonkers mixed with real life borderline slice of life is a really fun combination. So if I could think of that, but yeah, if it's all one night, getting if you kind of get recruited for like a favor, and then you have to carry out the favor. That's like almost like a after hours type thing. You know, it would be like you go to meet a girl. After hours is like he goes to meet a girl at her apartment and her roommate is there and she's like gone and he ends up there's like a billion things in that movie and they're all funny but and it's not like a comedy but I don't know, it is like a comedy, I guess. But he ends up liking the roommate kind of more than the girl he was supposed to meet. But then the girl comes back, so he had kind of been vibing with the roommate, but then it kind of undoes all that work. And that's where it's like, yeah, this is a comedy, but that's like getting into like some kind of authentic, funny stuff where it's not even necessarily trying to do jokes, it's just trying to do like kind of funny, authentic city living, city night misadventure stuff. And I do like all that stuff where in that way it feels like less contrived. Like some of this could be that could be a danger is if it's too contrived because you're trying to mix it with you want the interactivity, but then you want kind of the characters kind of having their own agency. That helps if you have kind of the world building set up pretty good. Usually for me it's like takes a couple drafts and then I might like then I can do a draft where every character has like pretty good agency. Whereas before the earlier drafts, some of them might be like plot convenience characters or whatever, you know. Um, but yeah, going over the girl in the tower one, that one worked pretty good. Um, yeah, I don't know, but I might still think a little bit about this off stream, but yeah, I think I will wrap this up in a second. What are you working on lately? Have you noticed anything? Nosferatu is going to launch. Jolly, I'll put it up. I've had Quiet Reds up a lot. The Nosferatu reprint is going to launch like it's ready. I can actually launch it at any time, but I can't really fulfill it anyway till like next February. So I'm probably launch it like in November, maybe mid-November. But I could launch it next week too. I don't know. I mean, it could be kind of nice if it's launched for Christmas or for Halloween. So I might launch it next week. But that one is not like super like, you know, trying to whatever get a bunch of sales. It's kind of just out there. I want to time it to with the release of the movie Nosferatu would be fun too. But Daylight says, remember Phone Booth? Booth, that was a high concept movie to the max. Yeah, that is. Yeah, yeah. And that is a little bit like it's kind of like that interactivity start, like you start with a picture, then you start building context around it. So like the picture is a guy in a phone and he can't leave the phone because there's a sniper on him. That's like, it is a great idea. And you can just picture the drawing and you're like, okay, this is the story. And you just build it out from that. So sometimes thinking of the drawing, it can kind of help. But like, it could be anything. Another example from the book is like, it's like the Lancelot and Guinevere kissing, you know? Like if it's two people kissing, that's like nothing. But if it's two people kissing and they're actually having an affair and their respective spouses are like looking for them, that is like, it's exact same imagery, but it's so much more intense, you know? So you can build, that's how you can kind of build interactivity that way. I would think it'd help that person would be in a claustrophobic situation. Yeah. Oh, just for like any start of a high concept, you're saying? Like, yeah. Or for an image. Yeah, you could have like a person laying in a what? A coffin, and you could build the interactivity from there, like why they're laying in the coffin. Maybe he died hard. Oh, die hard. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Well, yeah, I think I'm gonna end the stream. I don't know. It's semi-fruitful. Good to say a few things out loud at least. Keeps me thinking about it. But yeah, I'm not getting that like dopamine of like cracking the code, like getting eight mini comics and it's fun, like what they're doing, what it could be. You know, what would kind of be fun is if it's like a pop star in a city and an adventure that happens to her. Uh, I don't know. A few people been writing that kind of stuff lately. That's Smile too. That's Trap. But anyway, I like it too. I like a story about a pop star. The guy in the pointy hat with a knife. Yeah, that's Link. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Kind of anticlimactic ending, but yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. And everyone have a good night. And I'll see you guys later.